Junkies. We're reviewing Come On, Come On, which is the new movie starring Joaquin Phoenix. I think pretty much his first performance since Joker. It's not one of those big movies. It's an art house, black and white, indie film. A little bit in the vein of something that, say, there was another movie, I think Greta Gerwig was in it, I'm not too sure if she directed it, called Frances Ha, a neat little movie, and this sits almost alongside that. It's indie, it's low-key, it's low budget. I'd have thought Joaquin Phoenix perhaps was just given a bell by the director, Mike Mills, and they just said, oh look, have you got like a couple of weeks free in your schedule? Because it has the feel of being shot in sort of real time across a very short period of time. What's it about? Well, Joaquin Phoenix plays a radio journalist, or potentially a podcast creator. He's moving around America. He's annotating, collecting, curating interviews with young adults about their feelings about the future, their feelings about themselves, happiness, all this kind of stuff. So quite a philosophical sort of job or project that Joaquin Phoenix is working on. And I think we're asked quite early on in this film to kind of draw parallels between the questions he's asking and the questions that this film is asking of us, as well as the questions that the young boy, played by Gaby Hoffmann, asks of Joaquin Phoenix. Now, Joaquin Phoenix's sister is in a tumultuous relationship with a partner who's bipolar. So essentially Joaquin's brother-in-law is struggling with bipolar disorder. It appears to be type 1. So she's distracted and having to deal with her husband because he's been taken into an institution, a sanatorium of sorts. She's needing to get his life and their married life back on track. So in the interim, essentially, she hands her son, Gaby Hoffmann, played by Gaby Hoffmann, over to Joaquin Phoenix for care. And so that's the kind of, that's the springboard, in a sense, for the two of them the two characters of Joaquin and this young boy, to get set off on their sort of journey, a sort of buddy movie. And that's what this is, really. It's a buddy movie. Now, from the outset, I have to say, I think Joaquin Phoenix plays this absolutely magnificently. I think he's brilliantly low-key. I think he's incredibly real. Well, I hate that word. What does it mean? But you believe everything he says, does. You can watch just his face and you know he's in the moment all the time. Gaby Hoffmann, this boy, is an absolute revelation. I mean, I think many of his scenes may well have been, and probably were, unscripted, but his capacity to be both sort of charming and sweet, but bloody irritating and constantly asking questions. It reminded me, I had a couple of moments in watching this film where I felt quite emotional, because it reminded me of the natter that I used to do as a kid, and you could say I still do today. And the way in which adults would give you so much, but could only give you so much. So they got irritated with you. And I remember that feeling of disappointment, and rejection is too big a word, but that sense of, oh, why won't people talk to me? Why won't people answer me? And this boy has that. There are a few flashbacks to the trauma of Joaquin and his sister losing their mother in a hospice. And so that gives you a little bit of the backstory between Joaquin and his sister and where they're at. There are some quite emotional scenes between the two of them and between them and his mum, which are very moving. They're together for a protracted period of time, so about 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I think. And in that time, their bond obviously grows. They get closer to each other. And there's one particular scene that really, really resonated for me, which is the young boy. They're arm in arm, sort of lying on the bed. Joaquin, I think, is reading a story. And the young boy says something along the lines of, when I'm older, will I remember this? And this is something that bugs me all the time about the kids and the girls when we've taken them abroad, or they've had experiences which are, once in a lifetime experiences, but they're quite young, or they're below 11, or they're below 7. To what extent are they going to remember these things? Because when I think back, they're just misty moments. There's some specifics, but you can't recapture the intensity of that feeling. And in asking that question, the boy, Gaby Hoffmann, is clearly saying that this is one of the most sort of meaningful relationships he's had in a long time. He has a lot of sort of issues with his mum. He feels rejected by her, and yet at the same time he wants her there. So I really related to that too. But Joaquin Phoenix, in answer to this query, you can see is troubled and has a dilemma in himself as to the passage of time and how memories are going to be remembered and all this kind of thing. And I think it's quite a philosophical film in that sense, which is why you're going to be, so having said all of that, you're going to be surprised where I go now with this review. Finally, cinematography, absolutely stunning. I mean, black and white, obviously. To see New York in black and white, not too surprising, but to see Los Angeles in black and white was a revelation. It made you look at the tonal palette, without getting wanky, of LA and its architecture and its streets and all that. I just looked at it differently, and I've never really seen LA, modern LA, portrayed in a black and white fashion, because it's so colourful as a place that you're drawn to colour all the time. So sense of place was really nice, camera work was beautiful. But here's the thing, this film I really feel is let down by the characters played by, I think, Gaby Hoffmann and Scoot McNairy, essentially Joaquin Phoenix's character's sister and his brother-in-law. I thought the portrayal of bipolar was beyond risible. It was so two-dimensional. It was so obvious. It was so much slapping of the head. It was so much a sort of, here's a scene of him with his son having a mania, and here's a scene of him with his head in his hands. So that was a bit literal. I found his sister, Joaquin's sister, who is a pulse all the way through the film. You know, Joaquin phones her, there's updates about the child, about Gaby Hoffmann. You know, they connect, they reconnect, you know, and all the while, what's really sweet is Joaquin Phoenix is getting on with his project, recording the opinions of young adults, and he has this little entourage of other people who will look after Gaby Hoffmann when he's having to do the front line, you know, working and shooting and recording and stuff like that. The believability around that was a little slim, but yes, so the sister is a pulse throughout this, but there was just something about, I don't know if it was about her acting or about her character. I found her, to be simple, to put it simply, I found it irritating, and I don't think you were supposed to find it irritating. I think you were supposed to find their relationship, I think she worked well in their relationship, you know, that sort of sibling itchiness with each other, that sibling frustration with how they dealt with the death of their mother and all that. But I found her a little bit too hip and a little bit too self-consciously sort of articulate and cool. So again, you know, I think it's the strength of Joaquin Phoenix's inhabiting of the part that sort of showed up her as a sort of more she was more of an actor playing a part, playing a role. Although Joaquin Phoenix was great, you felt he was great, but he stayed at one great level. So there was no real arc or upward intensity enough or sufficient enough to kind of carry you to this sort of, it doesn't have to be a crescendo. I mean, it's a very contemplative film, it's a very gentle film, it's a very thoughtful film. But I think the thing that does carry the film all along is Gaby Hoffmann. But I was left when I came out of the cinema thinking, so what? And I don't usually feel that about a beautifully shot, reasonably well acted, and this was very well acted by Joaquin Phoenix. I just wonder whether I went in there expecting even more from Joaquin. I think I went in there and expected it to do more. I don't think it quite knew where it was heading in the end, and so it's an assemblage of moments, really nice moments, but the sum of its parts quite literally doesn't add up to much more than an assemblage of really nice moments of a guy babysitting a really irritating at times but really sweet boy. And therein lies its problem for me. So it was like eating something really special in a lovely restaurant, beautifully prepared and cooked, very nice on the tongue, but you're never going to really remember it, and it's not earth-shattering, and it doesn't particularly make you jump up and down with joy or excitement in the way, say, for example, something like Frances Ha did, or Frances Ha maybe did. So yeah, so in summary, I would have to say that if I was to score this film, I would give it probably a 6 out of 10 or 60 out of 100. You know, there's a lot to like, and I think if you've got a spare, I don't know, hour and a half, is it? If you've got a spare hour and 40 minutes, you could do something worse than watch this. But it's not gonna shake you up. It's not gonna transform your life. You're not gonna sit there. Well, interestingly, in terms of the theoretical explorations of the film, you know, memory, how do we hold on to memories? What are memories? I think this is surprisingly quite an unmemorable film.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.